Welcome to this special edition of Atlanta Live. Today we're going to be visiting with some very special guests who are going to be sharing their stories of courageous faith. Join me in welcoming author, producer, and founder of Franklin Entertainment, DeVon Franklin, and also author Christy. Welcome to this special edition. We're so thankful to have you here with us. DeVon, why don't we start with you? Tell us a little bit about why this story inspired you and why you felt compelled to produce this film.
You know, Christy has written a book called Miracles from Heaven, and actually the movie tie-in version just came out.
Yes.
And when I read the original version of this book, it was so powerful as she documented her story and her journey to find healing for her daughter. Her daughter Annabelle got sick when she was 4 years old and got an incurable stomach condition, 2 of them actually.
Wow.
And it was all about her fight and her family's fight to get Annabelle the best care and to do whatever they could to see if one day maybe she could get healed.
Right.
And what was so powerful about her story was, one, never giving up, continuing to fight. You know, being the middle child of 3 boys, you know, I grew up in a family raised by a single mom, and so, you know, that mother's love,
Yep.
There's nothing like it. And so to have read her story and what she did and what her husband did and her other daughters did to kind of rally around the family, it was so powerful. It just felt like this is going to be a movie that will not only inspire people, but also remind us that miracles are real. And so that was really the motivation to want to tell the stories, because she was so brave
Right.
and courageous in opening up her heart to share her story with the world.
You absolutely were. And you said, Christy, we've made it through these experiences because we've continued to be faithful. And you do have a very courageous faith. Now talk about that, because Annabelle was diagnosed when she was 4 years old.
I felt absolutely helpless, and I went through many emotions and many different levels in my faith, because it was challenging to say, where are you, God? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? Do you see this baby girl suffering?
Right.
And if you love Annabelle more than I do, how can this be going on? But then I went from the point of wondering, are you there? What is happening? To, God, you are not only there, you're sovereign, and you are in control. And I have no control. And that's when I finally found peace, was when I realized it was beyond me. There was nothing I could do. I had no control. And there was freedom in that.
Really? Because that is hard. So many of us as Christians, and I'm the same way.
Right.
You know, you get to that point, we think we've got everything under control. I mean, we're all leaders in our own right, and we just feel like, okay, we're going to lead our families, we're going to lead our household, and especially with our children. We feel like we've got this. We're raising this child. There's such responsibility in that, and I can only imagine as a mother how devastating that news would be, and how that multitudes of emotions, and many people in our audience, I'm sure, have been through something, maybe not something as traumatic, but something that challenges their faith. And
Yeah, and seeing how they came through that.
Exactly.
It's amazing. And the thing that's interesting is that when you read the book and you see the movie, you know, one of the main events is there's this incredible, you know, miraculous event that happens when Annabelle has this accident,
Yeah.
where she, you know, her and her sister are climbing the tree, and they climb about 30 feet in the air.
Exactly.
And she falls inside this old hollowed out tree. And what's so amazing about that is that she has an experience with God inside the tree, which leads to her healing. But the thing that people don't really, I don't think they always realize when they read the book, and those that have seen the movie, if Christy and Kevin, her husband, and Annabelle's father, and, you know, Abby and Adeline, which is the family, if they weren't fighting to keep Annabelle alive, she may have never made it to the tree.
that's right.
So we never know when God is going to show up. So we have to do our part. And so for, you know, you talk about your audience, people go through trials, yes, but you don't realize the more you fight,
Yes.
the more you stay in it.
Right.
You know, you are setting yourself up to see something that maybe you wouldn't have seen if you gave up.
Right, and the more you trust. You talked a lot, or you talk a lot about trust. You just trusted God. And that is that courageous faith. Talk about what it means to really, truly trust Him.
Well, I don't want it to mislead. There were times where I would give it to him and then take it back and worry about it a little bit, and then give it
Absolutely.
back to him and then take it back. When she just suffered, and there was no end to the pain. And there was one procedure after another procedure. The last year Annabelle was sick, she was hospitalized 9 times, no less than 5 days each time. And she was on 10 medications. And, you know, it just became to a point where I truly came to an understanding that, and God laid it on my heart, I love Annabelle more than you do. And if he loved that baby girl more than I did, he had to have had a bigger plan. So I just decided to trust that that plan was a good plan, because he is a good God and a sovereign God. And so that's where the trust came in, and just releasing it and believing in him.
Oftentimes when we go through trials, especially with our children, our marriage struggles. And what did y'all do, or what advice can you give on how you guys persevered in your marriage and to hold your family together during all the pressure and because internally as an individual, you're struggling. You know, even knowing God's there, we go through something like that and we're struggling. And then your husband's struggling, and it's hard to support one another. And then you got to be strong for the other 2 girls and for Annabelle. How did you hold it all together?
Well, there was a time when it was so hard and it was so bad, and I began to push him away. Well, let me back up. When we first got the call that Annabelle was for sure diagnosed with the pseudo-obstruction motility disorder, the doctor told me, number one, I'm sorry that I'm calling to deliver this terrible news that she does have this, but number 2, most marriages with children with this disorder end in divorce, and you and Kevin seem like good people, and I wish you the very best. And so not only at that moment did I get a sentence for my daughter, I felt like I got a sentence for my marriage.
Oh, wow.
And so there was a point where it did get hard, and I began to push him away. And Kevin, he just grabbed me, he physically grabbed me, and he hugged me, and he said, I don't know what you're doing, and I don't know where you think you're pushing me to or where you think you could go, but I will follow you to the ends of the earth.
Wow.
I will never, ever let you go.
Wow.
It is off the table. It is not an option. We are doing this together. And there was such peace in that. I didn't abuse it, and neither did he, but it was understood we were committed to do it together.
Wow, what courageous faith for both of you. I mean, that's a lot of courage on his part.
Sure is. Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, what an inspiration to our audience. Now tell us about the day of the accident.
That was a strange day because it started off like any other day. Annabelle was in pain. She was on the couch in the fetal position with a heating pad on her stomach, watching TV. But the other 2 girls were outside playing, and Abby, the very persistent big sister, had encouraged Annabelle to come play, and that was a miracle in itself that Annabelle had the strength to do that.
Yeah.
And so she did, and they ended up climbing one of the trees in a grove of trees on our property. They ended up 30 feet in the air, just sitting on a branch. Wow. The branch began to give way.
Yeah.
And Abby, in brilliance, she just told Annabelle, go into this little hole, which was like a nook that she thought in the tree, and you get your weight off. Once you do that, I'll come down. I'll help you get down, because she was so weak and sickly.
Sure.
But the hole was not a nook. It was actually the entrance to the tree. And Annabelle went in head first and fell 30 feet and went 30 feet, and she landed on the top of her skull and was entombed in the base of this hollowed out cottonwood tree on our property.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So was Kevin home?
He was not home, and he is the superhero. He is everything. And so the first thing I did was call him. I had no idea in my mind that it was all the way to the bottom. I thought it was like a little nook, like he could just reach down and pull her out. So he was 7 minutes away. He came home, thought the same thing. He brought a calf pulling rope because he's a veterinarian, mixed animal veterinarian. He brought the calf pull rope, climbed up this ladder, 30 feet in the air, and I will never forget him standing at the top rung of the ladder. And I'm screaming, should I call 911? Should I call 911? And I'm standing there with the phone in my hand. And he is so strong and so together and so in control. And the look on his face. And he just dropped the rope. And he said, call 911. And I knew it was bad. I knew it was bad. And so I called 911, and within moments, the first responders were there, the care flight helicopter landed, the ambulance, the fire trucks, and just the chaos ensued.
Wow. Did they have to cut the tree? I imagine.
They could not cut the tree because it was so fragile, it would have caved in on her and collapsed and crushed her. She was non-responsive, so they couldn't get her to wake up for quite some time. And then they couldn't send a man down after her because the hole was not big enough for a man. So we just waited and prayed. And they yelled out to her and yelled out to her for a long time. Then finally, at one moment, she just awoke. Wow. And was very calm and peaceful and gentle. And they lowered the rope to her and they talked her through exactly what to do. And Annabelle assisted in her own rescue.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Unbelievable.
Wow. Okay, so fast forward a little bit and we'll get, DeVon, I promise we're going to get to you because we want to talk about the production and the actors and actresses that you have playing the roles in this amazing story. But tell us a little bit more. Let's fast forward a little bit. You get her to the hospital, and when did you find out the news about the fall and the result of the fall?
They rush us via helicopter to the emergency room. We get there. They run a battery of tests on Annabelle, and the doctor comes in after hours and hours, and he says, Jesus must have been with that little girl in that tree. We have never had anybody fall 30 feet and not suffer paralysis or broken bones. She is wet, muddy, scratched, and bruised. Minor concussion, but that's it. They were not convinced there was nothing wrong, so they kept us overnight for a precaution. But that next day, and there were other factors going on with Annabelle, with her health, and because of the disorder and her mental health at that point. And we go over that in detail in the book. And if you kind of, I hate to skim over that part because it's important, but we got her out of the hospital. That next day it was very important to get her out and not leave her in for her mental health. And so we were driving down the road in the truck, and she just turns to me out of the blue and she says, Mommy, I went to heaven when I was in that tree. And I just looked at her, and I always say that I wish that I had said something brilliant and profound that I could recall, and I didn't. I just looked at her and I said, really? And I remember thinking, how hard did you hit your head, baby?
Yeah.
Then she just went on, very matter of fact. She wasn't telling me because she needed me to believe it. She was telling me because it just happened. And she said, yes, and I sat on Jesus' lap. And he told me I wanted to stay, Mommy, because there's no pain in heaven. But he told me he had plans for me on earth that I could not fulfill in heaven. And when the firefighters get me out, there will be nothing wrong with me. And that began what she began to open up, and that began our journey to where Annabelle is today.
Wow. And I'm glad you mentioned the book, because I want to encourage all of our viewers to get this book. I mean, if you're dealing with anything that you're struggling with, you're wondering how you can trust God in the midst of your most difficult of circumstances, what an encouraging story to read. And the details are all in there. There's no way we could cover all these details today. That's a good thing, because they need to get the book, and they also need to see the movie.
Absolutely.
I cannot wait to see the movie, because it is going to be so powerful, and you've got some amazing actors and actresses that are going to be in there. Jennifer Garner plays you, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and then Kylie plays Annabelle, Martin Henderson plays your husband, Kevin, and then talk about Queen Latifah. Okay, tell a little bit about her character.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's based upon, a real character that came into their lives. They were going to Boston to get treated at Boston's Children's Hospital by Dr. Samuel Nurko, who is the world-renowned specialist in this particular disease, pseudo-obstructional motility disorder. And while they were there, really just needing, someone to pick them up, there was a waitress at the hotel where they were staying, and Annabelle spilled some water, and the person that was attending to them was very rude to Christy and Annabelle.
Wow.
And Angela saw this and comes over and strikes up a conversation. And in the midst of the conversation, she recognizes how sick Annabelle is. And just, literally out of the grace of God, she says, hey, well, why don't I take you guys on a tour? And that began this relationship between Angela and Christy and Annabelle. Every time they would get to Boston, they would become family, and she'd take them out to eat and hang out with their kids. And so here's a modern-day angel that just when they needed it the most, she, I mean, literally didn't know them from anyone.
Right.
And just said, you know what? I'm going to be a miracle to them. And so
Right.
Queen Latifah plays that character.
That is
and she
awesome.
really embodies the spirit of
Sure she
Angela.
does.
does.
Wow,
Oh,
that's
she
awesome.
does. Yes.
You know, I think I can just see this is going to be a movie of, you know, intense suspense,
Yes.
you know, action,
Yes.
but just hope and encouragement. And then there's, I'm sure, going to be, if you got Queen Latifah, there's going to be some laughter.
Yes.
Some
Yes, she
fun
brings a
times.
lot of humor.
Yes,
She
so you're
does.
gonna. It's gonna be a lot of fun to watch. I cannot wait to watch it. So tell about the production. Now you started filming or started shooting in Atlanta, which is my hometown.
Yes.
And
We shot the whole movie in Atlanta.
You did shoot
Yes,
the whole movie in Atlanta.
The whole movie,
Awesome.
every frame. Even Heaven, we shot in Atlanta.
That's great. That's great. Awesome. I like
Yes,
that.
yes.
Tell me where it is. I want to go. Yes.
We'll show you exactly the location where the stage was shot.
That'll be perfect. Excellent. Okay. Tell us first off how our viewers can buy your book. How can they find you?
They can find me at christybeam.com.
Okay.
And get all the information they need from there.
Okay. And also for
For
you,
the-
DeVon, on the movie.
Yes, you can find Miracles from Heaven on our Facebook page.
Okay. Fantastic. Your Facebook page is at.
Facebook.com/Miracles Heaven.
Okay. Excellent. Look, thanks so much for being here with us today.
course.
This is so
Thanks for having
exciting.
us.
And thank you for being with us today. And we'll look forward to seeing you again.